Of course, now I gotta figure out how to get Julia, queen of the evil witches, Dunaway to think that I have something that she wants and can take by magic. Without actually lying. I'm too close to getting rid of this fool's cap to mess it up with a lie. I managed to pull off a minor coup in what remained of the school day. I managed to get my hands on that paperback on witchcraft of theirs. I flipped through it, memorizing the pages they had underlined. I sketched a pentagram and lemon juice on the inside back cover of the paperback. I figured they'd keep the book on hand when they made their witchy plans, just in case they needed to double-check something. I got it back to them using the old "did any of you drop this?" gag. Not that they were grateful or anything. After school, I managed to shake the pestle swarm. You'd think they'd have gotten the idea that I'm hard to catch by now, wouldn't you? And bicycled into town. One nice thing about living in a college town, there's no shortage of bookstores. It took a little digging, but I managed to dig up a copy. The Well-Nigh Stranger, Secrets of Appalachian Folk Witchcraft. My goodness, the things people fall for. Of course, Julia obviously hadn't believed any of this stuff until I helped her along with that illusion, so she's probably a little sharper than most of the Harry Potter fans who buy books like this. I was sitting at the soda Fontainebleau, all dressed up, trying to remember exactly which passages they'd underlined in that ridiculous book, when Paris and Della walked up. "What's this?" Paris pointed at the paperback with a strange look on her face. "This? Oh, after Friday night, I thought that knowing what kinds of tricks that Julia might have up her sleeve would be a good idea." "You take this kind of thing seriously?" I made an amused sound. "Are you kidding? I mean, it's okay for party tricks, but for anything real, forget it." "But what happened Friday?" "Hey, you heard Rebecca, mass hypnosis and that kind of thing." "Jordan, it wasn't mass hypnosis or anything like that." "What are you talking about?" "Jordan, ever since that thing came at me, things have been moving around." "You mean that you've actually seen things move?" "Well, no, but..." "Then how do you know that it's not just your imagination?" "I mean, this is exactly what that Julia was trying to do to you, you know." Della piped up, "Honestly, Jordan, she isn't making this up. She was losing things all weekend, and all day today at school. She'd put something down, look away, and a minute later, it was hiding under a book, or it had fallen to the floor or something." I gave her a long look. "Okay, but what do you want me to do about it?" "This?" I held up the paperback. "This is strictly stuff for amateurs. If you want it, you can have it." Paris gave me a measuring glance. "Jordan, you chased that thing away when it came at me." "That? Heck, that was nothing. I knew that Julia was pulling something, so I just did the first thing that came into my head to snap everybody out of it. No big deal." "Then how did you know to use salt against it?" "That? Oh, I saw something like it in a movie. What was it?" "Oh yeah, Hocus Pocus. A Disney flick. It had Bette Midler and Sarah Jessica Parker in it. The heroine used salt to hold off 3 witches. Like I said, it was the first thing that came into my head." "Jordan, would you help me out? Do a charm from out of that book or something, and get this thing off my back? Daddy thinks that I'm acting out or something like that. If this keeps up, he's gonna send me to a child psychologist." "A child psychologist? Ugh." Della reached out and touched my hand. "Jordan, do it. Even if it's all in our heads, maybe doing the right ritual will get it out of our system. And if there's really something going on, well, you chased it off once before." "Oh well. It couldn't hurt. And you gotta stand by the friends you got." Not really believing it, but just to be sure, I casually ran my good eye over Paris, and my jaw almost hit the table. There, sitting on her right shoulder, invisible to the mundane eye, was squatting a small bird of ill omen. Or a jinx bird, if you must. A rather nasty kind of trickster. The kind that waits until you're not looking and screws things up for you. To cover my look of surprise, I started flipping through the paperback, looking for something to use. Finally, I found something that wouldn't do anything on its own, but would serve as a good cover for me getting rid of the thing. An hour and a half later, we were at the cross of Fletcher's Lane and Shearer's Road, 2 footpaths between Millbridge and 3 nearby hamlets. Paris was standing in a circle of salt, holding a candle and saying as much of the 22nd Psalm as she could remember. At her feet was burning a small pile of bay leaves. While Paris and Della were busy with that, I basically looked the bird of ill omen straight in the eye and told it to scat. It scattered, and Paris breathed a sigh of relief. Phew! It feels like a huge weight has just been lifted from my shoulders. She gave me a big hug. Then I had to split. It was getting late, and I still had to help with dinner. The next day at school, the group was going around looking particularly pleased with themselves. I shared a look with Reese, but he looked as confused as I was. Julia must have pulled off something particularly nasty, but until I could sift through the ditherings that my eavesdropping spell collected, I was in the dark. At least it gave me a chance to think about how to return the gift that Julia had so thoughtfully given me a couple of months ago. The best solution would be for Julia to try and magically steal something from me, then the rule of intent would give her something other than what she was fishing for, the fool's cap. But for the life of me, I couldn't figure out how to make her think that I had something that she really wanted, without either lying or letting drop the none too small matter of the coven. The next best solution would be to lay a version of the same trap on Julia that I'd set for Reese. The problem was that my trick had been slipped to Reese as part of a deal, a bargain entered into by both of us of our own free wills, and bound by powerful vows. Again, that assumes that I have something that the charmless sisters want. Wednesday, I was biking into town when Mrs. Cosgrove waylaid me. Both Mrs. and Mr. Cosgrove are part of the coven, and they're both from the families. And Mrs. Cosgrove is a pretty sharp spellcaster in her own right. Dan Winters. I need to talk to you. I stopped, and she pulled me over to a clump of trees. Dan, I have to talk to you. I've found something very disturbing. I just barely managed to avoid breaking into a sweat. I set my spin doctor gauge to think of something stupid and smiled blandly at her. Honestly, Mrs. Cosgrove, both of my brothers know better than to go picking elderberries in your back lot. No kidding, she has the biggest dog in Millbridge, and it ain't no gentle giant. She made a dismissive noise. It's not that. I was out by Fletcher's Lane, and I spotted the remains of what looks like a crude ritual. Now, Dan, you know how the mundanes get when they hear that young uns have been fooling around with the black arts. Have you heard of anything? I gave a fleeting thought to sending her after Julia and her merry flock of harpies. But if I'm gonna saddle her with the fool's cap, I need Julia to keep thinking that she's the Wicked Witch of Millbridge for a while longer. And Mrs. Cosgrove's no one's fool. Well, none of the boys I hang out with have been making any noises in that direction. Well, at least none that aren't from the families, and would know better than to leave their signs lying around. She corrected my grammar and bustled on her way. Luckily for me, she accepted as a fact that girls my age don't drag their boyfriends into any occult mumbo-jumbo. They start doing that nonsense when they're well into high school or college. I got to the library and changed. I wandered around for a while until I ran into Jazz, and we started window shopping. We did the walk and talk thing, and got kind of silly. It was fun, in a way that was completely different from the fun that I had with Griff. Jazz has a mind that is ever so slightly quirky, and I like the way it works. As we were tearing up the clothes on display, Paris and Della walked up and made it a foursome. After we hung out for a while, Della managed to get Jazz off by herself. Paris' good mood dropped like a mask. That girl did it to me again. Huh? Julia Dunaway. She was the one that laid that curse on me. She did it again. Paris reached into her purse and pulled out a slip of paper. She held up the slip. On it were written very crude symbols, kind of like a kid who hasn't learned to read yet trying to copy a sign that she's seen from memory. Almost reflexively, I ran my good eye over Paris' right shoulder. The bird of ill omen was back, and bigger and nastier than before. It gave me a wintry glare and dared me to try to shoo it off again. No way! That thing was way too big for me to handle by myself. I reached into my backpack and pulled out my book. I flipped through it, like I was checking for a remedy. As I put the book back, I palmed a coin in my left hand. I laid both hands on Paris' shoulders and looked her straight in the eye. Okay, Paris, it's time to stop fooling around. You have to go to the big guns. First, you have to turn the curse back on the one who cast it. What? Didn't you ever see that movie, The Curse of the Demon, with Dana Andrews? Julia stuck you with this curse by slipping you this piece of paper. So, you gotta turn it back on her by slipping it back to her without her catching on until it's too late. How do I do that? Paris must be really rattled. Normally she's a lot more in control than this. Why don't you get Lex to do it? She'll probably be expecting you. I can't do that, she hissed, near panic. Why not? Lex has a thing about witchcraft and rituals and stuff like that. He thinks it's all tied up with the slavery thing. And he has an uncle who's all superstitious and embarrasses poor Lex to death. Ugh. It has to be somebody that's really close to you. What about Della? Well, she's your very best friend, Paris nodded eagerly. So, after Della slips the paper back to this Julia girl, go straight to St. Anne's Church on Highland and ask Father Conroy to give you Massachusetts. It will probably be too late for the regular Wednesday afternoon mass, but he'll probably do it if he thinks it will put your mind at rest. But I'm not Catholic. It doesn't matter, the Roman Catholic Church is supposed to be the major league power in matters like this. As I understand it, part of the Mass is that it frees you from being under the power of any force other than God, or something like that. I only know this cause a priest once showed up at the Unitarian Church and talked about it. But it should work. Paris turned to get Della and hurry off to find Julia. As she turned, the coin that I'd slipped onto her shoulder fell off. It would have been better if the coin had been solid silver or cold iron, but you do the best with what you've got. The coin was blackened from when it short-circuited the link between the bird of ill omen. Birdie was still hovering over Paris, but without that link, it shouldn't be able to mess with her anymore. And the Catholic Mass should get rid of it, just as I told Paris. I kicked the coin down a sewer grating and went back to hanging out with Jazz. I finally got an idea of how I was gonna stick it to Julia. I managed to corner Reese between classes. You still up for getting back at Julia Dunaway? Am I? I was getting worried that you were gonna chicken out. Not to worry, my friend. I need you to get that paperback book that they're always flipping through. Why? I've seen more meaningful books that begin with C-spot run. I smiled slyly, reached into my backpack, and pulled out my copy of Julia's book. Reese raised his eyebrows in an oh-ho expression of understanding. I used the rule of similarity to enchant it so that it will have all the right notes, underlinings, folded corners, and dog-earing. With one little addition. I turned to the dedication page and ran a little glamour through the lemon juice symbols I'd written there. A variation on the curse that I laid on you. My price for giving her this book will be that she makes a solemn promise not to use any harmful magic. Reese grinned from ear to ear. Oh, that is classic. Since Dunaway doesn't have the slightest clue as to how magic really works, she'll break her word. What'll you use, the rivers or the wands, at the first opportunity? Not only do you get rid of the fool's cap and get back at Julia, but the fool's cap goes where it really belongs. But, if everyone thinks that the fool's cap is still on your head, I've got that covered. Mrs. Cosgrove is on the lookout for kids practicing dark magic. You know, the old "there's nothing weird going on in Millbridge" bit. So, if Mrs. Cosgrove just happens to catch the bitch pack doing their bubble, toil and trouble act. Can I do it? Can I do it? Sure. Just make sure that Mrs. Cosgrove doesn't stop them in time to keep them from breaking their word, and that everyone hears about it. In gory detail. If that doesn't weld the fool's cap to her noggin, nothing will. After third period, Reese brushed past me. Got it. I put it in the lost and found. Good man. I went off in search of the bitch pack. They were huddled around Gail Edgerton's locker, burrowing through it furiously. I cleared my throat loudly. Ladies? Are you looking for something? I held up the book and smiled smugly. Julia glared daggers at me. That's mine. Give it here, dork. Really? I don't see your name written on it anywhere. You stole it. Give it back, or I'll. You'll do what? Cast a spell on me? I waggled the book, which they thought they needed to work their magic, at them. Or call Miss Sorensen and ask her to get back your book of rituals? Sorensen confiscated my comic books. What do you think she'd do if she knew that you were reading a book on the dark arts in class? Her backup singers looked like they were on the ropes, but Julia still wasn't backing down. In someone who wasn't a complete jerk, I'd respect that. Oh, and if you're thinking of getting your boyfriend of the week to get it back, I made like I was gonna rip it apart by the covers. No. No. Okay, Dan, you win. What do you want? I smiled, all gracious victory. Not much. I understand that you've been very naughty little girls, casting spells at people. All that I want in return for this book is that you give me a solemn oath that you won't cast any more harmful spells, especially on me, my family, or my friends. Julia gave me a smile, the kind of phony smile that gives other people a bad name. I could tell that I'd just dropped in her estimation from dork to complete fool. Why, of course. We would never. Let's make it a formal oath, Dunaway. I flipped through the book, and seeming to read from it, guided her through the rivers, binding her to never perform any ritual with a malicious intent that would affect me, my family, or any of my friends. Julia went through the motions with a smile on her lips and treachery in her heart. When she said the last bit, I handed her the book, and I felt the curse click into place. As I walked off, I heard a giggle behind me, and a whispered, "Fool." Reese was waiting for me with a Cheshire cat grin on his face. We did the fist salute thing, and I asked him, "Is your eavesdropping spell still up and running?" He nodded with a smirk, and then he concentrated. Let's see, now. Nasty comment, snide remarks, "Oh, I'll bet they don't know how close to the mark they were with that one, yes." Julia just told her crew that they're gonna finish off Paris Ashbroom first, and then make your life really miserable. Faye, talk about coals to Newcastle. Any idea of when they're gonna do this? Reese concentrated again. Tonight's no good, tomorrow, around 9, out in Cooperswood by the spooky old oak. I snickered. The place had absolutely no magic, but it looked eerie. Exactly the kind of place where Julia would try to hold a witches' gathering. So, Reese, you want to sick Mrs. Cosgrove on M? You are too good to me. With that, he split for his 4th period class. He would be happy if this comes off. Not only does he get his own back at Julia, but if she's wearing the fool's cap, then I have nothing to hold over him. He could do almost anything that popped into his twisted little mind without fear of triggering the hex that I'd placed on him. And he knew about my other life. Maybe I'll let him know that the hex that I just put on Julia was only an extension of the one that I'd put on him. If he did anything to me, he'd whisk the fool's cap right off of her head and onto his. Yeah, I'll let him know, after he sets Mrs. Cosgrove on the bitch pack. After school, I hooked up with Griff and his gang. Paris was feeling great after her session with Father Conroy. And for the first time in a week, JD was there. But, of course, Jazz was nowhere to be seen. Damn! Ain't that the way it always goes? By the time I manage to get these two together in the same room, she'll probably be dating somebody else. Though we were all talking, Paris made noises for silence. Guys, what are you all doing, Friday night? A lot of nothing much noise rumbled around the pizzeria table. Okay, then show up at my place, my parents are busy that evening, and they said that I could have a few friends over. Another party? Didn't you just have a party a few weeks ago? No, not a party, just a few friends over. You know, pop some popcorn, watch some videos, who wants to rent what, and hang out. You gotta be out by 10. It struck me that Mr. Ashbroom was playing his controlled liberty games again. With them out of the house, it was a near certainty that she'd call a few friends over. By letting Paris have a small select group over, he could be reasonably sure that they wouldn't want to blow a good setup by having it escalate into a big party. I had a feeling that Mr. Ashbroom played this let them do what they're going to do anyway, on your terms game a lot. I asked Paris if I could invite Jazz over. With the barest flicker of her eyes, first at Lex and then JD, she said sure. During the inevitable trip to the powder room, I asked Paris if she'd had any trouble with the bitch pack. Nah. I ran into Rita Hewitt, but I checked myself out completely afterwards. She didn't manage to put anything on me. Not that that really counted. Rita could have pulled the old get a couple of strands of hair trick. I wouldn't worry about it. According to that book she's been using, you can only try to put a spell on the same person 3 times. There was the time at the party, there was the time that we got rid of it with the circle of salt, and there was the time that she slipped you that piece of paper. That's 3. Now, she'll have to find somebody else to pester. Actually, that's not the way the rule of 3 works, but there was something to that effect in that stupid book. And that was that. Paris was more than happy to put her little encounter with the supernatural behind her, and we got back to the crucial business of being a bunch of 15-year-olds hanging out. I mean, it's a dirty job, but somebody's gotta do it. Friday at school was full of these little undercurrents, Julia and her crew whispering and giggling at each other, Reese casting smirking glances at the bitch pack, and me just happy that it was all on automatic. I was so busy that I didn't pay attention and ran smack into the Peslo swarm. Luckily for me, it was right between classes, so all they had time to do was stuff me in a locker. And if I've learned to do anything this year, it's get out of a locker. I managed to get my homework done in study hall and headed straight home after school to get my first chores of the weekend out of the way. I cleared my late-night plans at Paris with my mom, and she made a few noises about being happy that my social life was doing so well. Then she asked little brothers Trey and Brett if they wanted to go visit their little friends. I think that she and Dad need a little alone time. Once I had my chores done, I snagged a perky little black turtleneck and red plaid miniskirt number that I'd been saving for a special occasion and was out the door. I cruised Old Town on my bike for a while, hoping to run into Jazz. I did. Those tire marks ought to come out with a little baking soda. Jazz! St. Peter, is that you? Oh, get off of it, I missed you by a mile. How much is SMERSH paying you to kill me? I'll double it. Ha! You don't have enough money, bloated capitalist pig. Nobody double-crosses Smersh and lives to brag about it. How's about an orange raspberry mint delirium with crushed walnuts? Now you're talking, Yankee imperialist running dog. Let on. As we dug in, I invited Jazz to Paris. She cocked an eye at me. So, is there anything special that you have planned? Sigh, okay, you got me. There's this really cute guy named JD who hangs out with us. He's really nice, but he hasn't had any luck with girls, yet. I thought that if I got you and him together, it would be nice. Not to mention smoothing Paris feathers a lot, I think that she's worried about you making goo-goo eyes at Lex. Jazz made a well of course noise at the last bit. Then she gave me a measuring glance. So, this DJ. JD. JD, is he cute? Hell, yeah. A little on the quiet side, but playing the tag-along will do that to you. I know, I've been there. It's no fun. Sorry, girl, but I don't do mercy dates. It's not a mercy date. Just give him a chance. She chewed it over for a while. Okay. If he's there, I'll give him a chance. But, if it doesn't work out, well, Paris doesn't have her name written on Lex or anything. Don't do this to me, Jazz. I really like you, and I don't want to have to choose between you and Paris. And Paris and Lex are good together. Lighten up, Blondie. I didn't say that I was gonna steal Paris' boyfriend, I just said that if this JD guy and I don't click tonight, that, well, all's fair, and all that. I gave out a long-suffering sigh. You know, Jazz, messing around with a romance in progress is really bad karma. She snickered. Bad karma? What, were your parents at Woodstock or something? Actually, I'm not sure. Jazz went to the payphone to call her parents to let them know that she'd be late, and then we went off to find Griff or Lex or Stu or JD, so that we'd have a boy's perspective when we rented something to watch. Good luck! We found Griff and Stu, but while we wanted something romantically comedic that we could cuddle to, they actually wanted to rent Tomb Raider. I mean Tomb Raider? All it has is Angelina Jolie in a tight-fitting outfit with a padded front, jumping around and shooting guns, and I think I just shot myself in the foot there. We split the difference and got Kiss of the Dragon, which had guns and kung fu and explosions, but at least had Jet Li for us girls. When we got to Paris, Lex was there with a copy of Tomb Raider. It's a conspiracy. Fortunately, Paris had a copy of Scary Movie, so we were able to hold off Angelina Jolie for a while. I asked Lex, "Where's JD?" I thought that he said that he was gonna be here. Lex shrugged. He called and cancelled. Last-minute family thing, he said. Ugh. The arguing went on as we decided what we wanted on the pizza. Oh well, at least Jazz had the class to not make a play for her hostess boyfriend while we were watching her movie. Then the pizza came. I went to the door to pay for the pie. As the pizza guy handed me the carton, I felt something blow past me in the doorway. And it wasn't the wind. With my witch-trained intuition, I felt it waft invisibly up the staircase. I paid the pizza guy and took the carton into the living room. I'm gonna brew up some herbal tea. Anyone want? I got a few saner orders for Cokes and went into the kitchen. Why tea? Well, you know that old gypsy con game with reading tea leaves? Well, it isn't entirely a scam. Water is very sensitive to the fluctuations of the glamour as it runs through the earth, and the little bits of tea can show someone who knows how to read them little things like the presence of spirits in the area. Lucky for me, Paris' mom is the type who prefers loose tea to the stuff in bags. After delivering the Cokes, I boiled some water and soaked the leaves. According to the leaves, the bird of ill omen was back. And this time, it was angry. Also, from the way that the water was sloshing around the cup, it was much more powerful than it had been before. The first time, it had been so weak that I could just shoo it away. The second time, it was too powerful for me to handle without a lot of embarrassing explanations, so I had to send Paris to Mass to get rid of it. This time, it was so powerful that there was no way that a puny little witch in training like me could get rid of it. A full-fledged witch like Mom might be able to handle it, no problem, but not someone like me? Then it hit me that trying to be clever, I had screwed myself over again. The rule of 3 states that in a sequence of 3, each successive attempt is geometrically greater in power, and after the 3rd attempt, it becomes useless. That stupid bird of ill omen needed me to chase it away twice in order to become as powerful against Paris as it has. Because of me, that thing is powerful enough to hurt Paris. And I even let it in the house. Okay, calm down, Winters. You can't fight it, it's too powerful. So, don't fight it. Send it somewhere else. But then it will only come back, just as strong, because it hasn't tried anything yet. So, send it against someone who is powerful enough to fight it. Who? Man, I wish that I could send it after Julia Dunaway and her sick little witch wannabe buddies, like I am sending the Fool's Cap. The Fool's Cap. If I can find whatever the bird of ill omen is homing in on, I can splice myself into the link between the bird and Paris. It's angry enough at me that it might not care, even if it has enough of a mind to tell the difference. And judging from the size it was when this all started, it can't be all that bright. It will go after whoever is easier. Lovely. I can save Paris, but that bird will probably tear me apart. No, it won't. I looked at the clock. It was just past 9. Julia and her coven were probably starting up. I used the Fool's Cap and felt a tension there. Yes. They hadn't broken their word yet, but they were gearing up to. Great. Not only would Julia have the Fool's Cap to deal with, but she'd have the pants scared off of her by the bird. She'd probably think that she was cursed by the spirit that she'd clumsily conjured up. Oh yes, the bird Anne. Oh no! I can't send both the cap and the bird at the same time. The parameters of my enchantment won't allow for it. I could tie the link between Paris and the bird into the Fool's Cap, but it would end up sending either the cap or the bird. If I sent the cap, I'd still have to deal with the bird. Or, I could sit tight, pass the cap off to Julia, and let Paris handle a great big goblin bird by herself. Like hell. Paris is my friend. I don't do things like that to my friends, especially when I'm to blame for so much of it all. I picked up a salt shaker and an iron knife, and carefully went up the back stairs to Paris' room. I slowly opened the door to Paris' room and switched on the light. Paris has a pretty standard girl's bedroom with pastel colors, a row of stuffed animals, posters on the wall and a ruffled four-poster bed. Normally, it's pretty cheery. But even with the light on, now it was dark and foreboding. The primary reason for the gloom was perched on the backboard of Paris' bed. The first time I'd seen it, the bird of ill omen was about the size of a finch. The second time, it was the size of a large raven. Now, it was the size of a California condor and would make your basic buzzard look downright cuddly. It glared at me like I was trying to take away its food. And why not? I was. Wait a minute. What's this thing doing up here? Why isn't it settling itself on Paris' shoulder? Is there something here that connects this thing to Paris? Come to think of it, I have no idea where this creature came from in the first place. The thought occurred to me that maybe Julia has more talent than she lets on. Nah. If Julia had the slightest trace of magical talent, then she'd never bother hiding it under a bushel, and the coven would have mopped the floor with her years ago. Maybe Paris has some of the talent, and she's doing this to herself without realizing. Maybe it's something about the bed. No, if there were anything weird about the bed, Paris would have noticed. Something under the bed? I reached under the bed, and the bird started to freak. I hastily formed a circle of salt and inscribed another circle with the steel knife 3 times. Okay, the bird doesn't want me messing around under the bed. That's as good as an engraved invitation. I reached out of my protective circle and got an umbrella that was hanging on the dresser. Still safe in my circle of salt, I poked the umbrella under the bed and found that stupid doll. The Barbie doll, wrapped up in a gauzy scarf with a black cord that I'd used to summon that illusion to scare Julia. Somehow, that bird latched onto the doll and has been using it to reconnect with Paris. Jesus! I'm to blame for everything. I used the umbrella to fish the doll out from under the bed, and the bird went wild. I undid the cord and unwrapped the doll, releasing the energies that I'd put into it. Which left the bird of ill omen only one prey it could get to. Me. It spread its wings and swooped down at me. It screamed and battered at the circle of salt, scraping away at the hurried protection I'd made. I felt the circle wear away under the bird's onslaught. It had its prey in its sights and it wasn't going to be shoot off this time. I could feel it weaving its link into the fool's cap and using that to worm its way through the circle. I felt it oozing toward me, grasping for my very soul. I held the steel knife in front of me. Maybe if I stabbed it right in the center, I might disrupt its flow of magic with the steel. Then I felt something jerk at my head. For an instant, a heavy weight that I'd almost gotten used to was lifted, and I was free. Then the weight came down again, and the bird was pulled out of the room like it was on some kind of rope. I heard the front door, which the bird had used to get in, open and close. I heard Stu say, "What was that?" Julia. Julia, God help us all, Dunaway had saved my bacon. She'd cast some spell out of that ridiculous paperback book of hers and triggered the enchantment. Instead of pulling the fool's cap off of my head, it had dragged off the bird of ill omen and sent it after Julia. But I wasn't worried about Julia. Knowing Reese, he had Mrs. Cosgrove there, and she was probably dealing with the creature right now. My hands shaking a little, I put the Barbie back on the dresser where I'd first found it. Then I used a clothes brush to sweep up the salt, and Paris would never know that I'd been up there. I walked down the back stair, got my cooling cup of herbal tea, and rejoined the gang just as the killer started doing something really silly and scary movie. I scooched in between Griff and Stu, and nestled up against Griff. I wanted somebody to be strong for me. I watched the killer making a complete mess out of trying to kill someone, and I couldn't help but shiver. "Hey, Jordan, what's the matter?" Griff asked. "Hey, you know that creepy stuff like this never happens in real life." Monday at school, Reese came up to me. What happened Friday night, man? What did you send after her? It's kinda complicated. Things got involved, and I had to improvise. Did Mrs. Cosgrove deal with it? Yeah. I didn't know that she knew those kinds of tricks. Did you? You know. He lifted 2 hands off his head like he was taking off a crown or maybe a cap of some kind. Nope. Whoa. Hell, he was just upset that he still couldn't mess with me. And me? Well, I think that I've had my fill of payback for a while. If I hadn't been so excited about sticking it to Julia and her crew, I never would have put Paris, or myself, in that goblin bird's way. Julia, Cole, Mrs. Sorensen, Coach Bacchus, it was all too much trouble to try and get back at them. Besides, what good would it really do? People like Cole Peslow don't learn if you kick them in the wrong place, they just want to get you back, and there you are again. But at least I had the satisfaction of watching Julia Queen of Darkness Dunaway jump at shadows for a few weeks.